And you talked about defense in your season plan and preparation for training camp. And you mentioned some of the actions that you prepare for. Can you give us like the 5 main actions that are happening in the NBA that every team has to prepare for?
I think it starts with transition, and that's just always a huge dilemma because there's no set plays in transition. So always drilling it is huge as far as creating basically a mindset to get back. That's huge. Another area sounds simple, obviously, of your individual defense and your kind of closeouts and stuff, and that's huge and kind of getting reps at that. But I think an area that I really want to up this year is help defense and just the ability to shrink and pack the paint. And obviously, in the NBA, there's great shooting, but I think you're seeing kind of a comeback of really helping in the paint. Like, I believe like the top 8 defensive teams were all top 8 in least amount of points allowed in the paint this year. So whereas I've always been a no rim, no 3 guy, contested 2s outside the paint is what we want to force. I'm going to put a little more emphasis on paint defense. But those are 2 just concepts. But pick and roll, dribble handoffs, screening action as far as, you see a lot of 5-out stuff. A lot of teams call it delay. A lot of teams call it motion or whatever. But just, Big has the ball in the middle of the floor, pins on both sides, curls. Defending that is huge. And I'd say those are the huge stuff. So you got transition, individual defense, help defense, pick and roll defense, dribble handoff defense, and then, screening action defense with, a catch and shoot element, pin downs and whatnot,
And you mentioned the word, your phrasing of nail help. I'm sure a lot of coaches will want to know what that is. So can you talk about nail help and what that phrasing means?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like when the ball is in the slot or on the wing, having a presence a step or 2 below the ball so that we always say, let's be in to get out, meaning that you're there already so that if the drive comes, potentially by being there already, you've kind of discouraged it at the nail, kind of being in when the ball's in the wing in the middle of the floor there at the nail. And then if the ball is kicked out, you recover out, and it's just, I want to make that a little more of a constant where if you're doing, a great way to teach defense is film review, meaning like you're breaking down live play afterwards and kind of showing people where they're doing good and where they're doing bad. And just one thing is if the ball's in the wing or the slot, just having a presence in to get out at that nail so that maybe the drive never happens simply because they see a man there. So basketball split-second decisions. So if you see that, potentially the drive never happens simply because you were there versus, say, hugging your man, ball drives middle, you run to the nail, but you're too late. Maybe you even stop the drive, but then they kick it out to your guy and you have no chance of it, if that makes sense.
Totally. And, it's one of the challenges that because we're protecting the 3-point line so much at your level that there's a tendency to give up layups. And sometimes I think people get frustrated, say, oh, they're giving up layups. We don't give up layups in high school. But, the emphasis is completely different because there's 5 players spaced and shooting threes and the value of the 3 and all that stuff. So, how do you deal with that?
Well, it's funny. So last year, like defensively, our numbers weren't great in the G League, but we were really good at limiting 3-pointers. And I think a big part of that was our pick and roll defense. The NBA, has gone, obviously, teams are still being aggressive, and there's teams you have to be aggressive versus. But at the same time, we call them drops where the big is back in his coverage and just kind of handling it 2-on-2 so that you're not kind of engaging the help. And I think we were a big drop team, and it limited the amount of threes we gave because we weren't sucking in on any type of pick and roll stuff. On the side, we're back in our ices, meaning forcing it to the baseline. Some teams call it down, some teams call it blue. So I think my biggest transition from that is that maybe in emphasizing 2-on-2 pick and roll so much, I kind of let the other stuff slip and didn't have enough focus on keeping the ball out of the paint in every situation. So I think I'd still like this year to kind of keep it 2-on-2 and limit threes when we're in pick and roll situations. But every other situation is simply guard your man, and behind it, we have to be in our shrink spots and we have to protect the paint. And it's just got to be a huge emphasis of just kind of not allowing as much initial penetration that can break your defense down.